We're at the Dallas Fantasy Fair, and I'm speaking with Stephen Bissette, most lately editor, almost publisher of Taboo, editor of Taboo at least, and also quite accomplished artist of, among other things, Swamp Thing. We're going to be talking about him, his latest project, and his many-faceted career in comic books. So, Steve, one philosophical question I wanted to ask you to start out. What is taboo these days? Not the book, but in our society, as far as horror goes, what is taboo?
What is taboo?
Yeah, what is taboo?
Well, there's still plenty of them.
Okay.
I mean, we're in a country now that's getting more and more repressive about ideas and concepts. And in the new Taboo, we've done an introduction by Doug Winter, author who also happens to be a crackerjack lawyer. And he makes the point in there, which is true, that we're in a society that tends to, not only tends to, that's much better and much more concerned with regulating what people see, rather than regulating firearms, drugs, what have you. Right. So there are still plenty of taboos. I'm not going to bother listing them.
Okay. Point of that is it also is easier too, though, for them to regulate something you can read or then see than it seems to do drugs and stuff like that.
Well, yeah.
Right.
I guess my point with doing a book like Taboo is,
right,
what's the point of regulating imagery? What's the point of regulating what you can read or what you can see? I don't believe that people can be harmed by an image. If you're shot with a gun, it's pretty permanent damage.
Well, I tend to say that. Yeah.
And yet our culture is much more concerned with what we see or what we don't see. Obviously there's power to images and there's power to stories. I wouldn't be doing what I do for a living if I didn't believe there was. But I don't think it's a destructive power. There are ideologies that are destructive. You know, it's most people would pick on the Nazis, for instance, as being an ideology that clearly had destructive and cataclysmic impact.
Well, you might say any ideology improperly used can, develop into this destructive.
Well, yeah, I mean,
right. The misuse of any weapon or something like this.
But
any thing.
But the actual images involved. I mean, I think it's a crazy hypocrisy within our culture that we do tend to regulate and control imagery more than we regulate and control things that actually are, on a very material level, destructive and murder.
Okay. Well, okay, now from that we will segue to Taboo, the book itself. Tell me how it came about. You started it out also as your own, was your own public?
Well, it still is Spider Baby.
Okay, and it's being distributed by Tundra now, right?
It's, yeah, we're working with Tundra. We're producing the book in association with Tundra, and they're basically responsible for the marketing and distribution of the book now, as well as the help we get on production and the printing and everything else. Taboo started as an idea that John Toddleben, with whom I was drawing Swamp Thing at that time, John Toddleben and I felt that nothing new had been done in the genre of horror in the comics medium. And in fact, what we and Alan Moore did in Swamp Thing was our attempt to bring a fresh perspective to doing horror comics. Nobody had really gone beyond the EC formula. It was great in 1953 and 1954. Gee, it's 1990. I mean, there are a lot of other ways of approaching telling stories. There are a lot of other stories to be told. And we also were finding that what we felt was the cutting-edge material, work by people like Charles Burns, S. Clay Wilson, Mark Baer, Chester Brown. It wasn't appearing in a volume that presented that work as being of a single focus, of a single intent.
A horrific kind of thing.
Well, not just horrific. Taboo is not really a horror book. It's a disturbing book.
Okay.
It's confrontational.
Right.
I don't feel it's a horror book. With our current issue, number 5, there are stories in there. If someone is buying Taboo thinking they're going to get a horror fix, I mean, go to Hellraiser, go to the Clive Barker books. I mean, there's a lot of other things going on in there. And that was the catalyst for Taboo. We wanted to provide a focal point, a magnet, if you will, for that kind of material to appear under one cover. And the starting point was really Dave Sim, the editor, publisher, artist, writer, actually scratch editor. He's everything but editor on Cerebus. And Dave made an offer to us that he had made to quite a number of other creators that who did work he respected. He basically said, "You guys do whatever you want to do, and I will help you publish it." And what Dave meant was bankroll us. He had no interest in being a publisher. He didn't want it to be perceived as Dave Sim's book.
Yeah, Dave Sim Presents. Right.
He didn't even want Dave Sim Presents. He didn't even He didn't want that at all. And what John and I wanted to do, much to Dave's chagrin, wasn't our own book or our own character. We wanted to do what became Taboo. And Dave indeed backed us for a full 2.5 years, and it took that long to arrive at book 1. Right before it came out, and I won't go into the particulars, Dave had a number of run-ins with the distributors. He felt ethically that he couldn't publish us because he thought that the attitude the industry had about him would affect us, that people would perceive it as a Dave Sim publication.
That would be a downer on that.
So my wife and I set up Spider Baby Graphics and Publications, and that is the company that produced Taboos 1 through 4, and Spider Baby still does Taboo, but we are now doing it in association with Tundra Publishing, which is Kevin Eastman's company.
Right, correct. Which is also publishing, I guess, is the first spin-off from Taboo, the From Hell anthology.
Well, I wouldn't call them spin-offs. Bear in mind with Taboo.
Repackaging? What do you call it?
Well, when we do Taboo, we don't put any hooks into the material. All we do is publish material for the first time. We don't get a share of it. We don't sink our teeth into it. The first series to come out of Taboo was From Hell, which still has 12 chapters to go. By Alan Moore and Eddie Campbell, and Tundra has begun collecting From Hell. So, whatever you want to say it is, that's what it is. But it started in Taboo and it continues in Taboo.
Getting now into some biographical material. One of the stock questions every fan interviewer asks is, you know, how the heck did you get into comics? So I'll go ahead and ask you the question. How the heck did you get into comics?
From the time I was 3, I drew. I've drawn all my life. I wanted to do film. Film really had more of an impact on me than comics. And I realized growing up in Vermont that I wasn't going to make movies. You know, there are a lot of filmmakers in New England, but it was obvious to me when I was a young teenager that it took massive amounts of money and people and technical experts to mobilize to make a single film. And I realized that I could do on a piece of paper with a pen pretty close to what I would like to be doing in film. I could tell stories. It would be purer because what I put down on paper, the only thing standing between me and someone who reads my material is the printing process. And unfortunately, whatever business has to be done with publishers. And that's what led to my doing comics. There were a lot of detours before getting into comics. I did work on 8mm film. When I went to college to take art, I ended up doing 2 years of technical theater instead. All of this, though, ended up being very beneficial. A lot of techniques I learned about theatrical lighting carries over into my drawing.
So automatic putting together of the story and such.
Well, and all of it is storytelling. You know, all of it is storytelling. And basically that's what comics are, storytelling. My first comic was while I was in college. I was in Johnson State College in northern Vermont, and a friend of mine who liked my sketchbook said, I've got a couple extra $100. I'll pay for a book if you want to do one. And I did myself and a number of friends, Steve Perry, who wrote comics at Marvel for a time, a couple other friends, we put together a book called Abyss, and that's where it started. Abyss.
Abyss, right. A-B-Y-S-S, like this.